Are you dissatisfied with your life? Are you consistently comparing yourself to other people you see online or on social media and thinking your life is really bad? There is something called life dysmorphia, and we are going to go into exactly what that is and whether you could be a victim of this phenomenon. Welcome to the What's Eating You podcast. I'm your host, Stephanie Giorgio, and I'm a clinical psychologist. Welcome back to the What's Eating You podcast. I'm excited for this last minute episode today. I actually just got a text message about being interviewed on a very popular podcast, and I'm just doing this episode to prepare for that podcast. So one of the episodes I did a while ago was how I prepare for media interviews or last minute engagements, because it is very last minute. Sometimes you get an hour notice, sometimes you get 2 hours notice, but I'm being interviewed in 3 hours. And part of my preparation is I record a podcast on the topic that I'm being interviewed about. So this episode is going to cover that topic, which is life dysmorphia. It sounds a little bit like dysphoria, but it is life dysmorphia. You're probably thinking, I've kind of heard this term before. Is it body dysmorphic disorder? Similar, but different. So basically the term life dysmorphia is used to describe this dissatisfaction that you feel with your life. The word dysmorphia means distorted. It comes from the Greek word dys, meaning bad, and morphe, meaning form or shape. So in body dysmorphia, our body, we see a real or perceived flaw about our appearance and we obsess over it and we engage in body checking and all these things. Life dysmorphia is when you have a distorted appraisal of your overall life, your success, your relationships, your happiness, your status. You fixate on what's missing instead of seeing what is working. And I am so guilty of this. And I'll give you an example. Last night, I actually stumbled across a TikTok video. And what she was speaking about was something called anhedonia. Now, anhedonia is a different term, and it's used to describe a feeling of loss of pleasure in things you previously used to enjoy. And it's one of the key characteristics of depression. Anhedonia is a loss of interest in things you previously used to enjoy. So for example, I used to love playing basketball, but now I don't get that same joy out of basketball, so I stopped playing it. And this girl explains that the reason people are experiencing anhedonia or a lack of pleasure in things they used to enjoy is because of this hedonic adaptation. Now, hedonic adaptation basically means adapting to things that are good or pleasurable so that it no longer has this impact on us, and then we need more and more. It's similar to dopamine. Playing a new video game gives you that dopamine, or maybe having a certain food gives you dopamine. And then if you have that food every single day, every day, you're going to become desensitized to the pleasure that it gives you. And that can lead, in extreme cases, to symptoms of anhedonia, or it can lead to this life dysmorphia when it comes to your life. So I'm going to explain what it is in more detail, why it happens, and how you can start to get that pleasure back in your life. So, life dysmorphia, it is not a clinical term. It's not a diagnosis. It's a colloquial term used to describe this distorted perception of our life, which makes us feel dissatisfied with our life because we are focusing on what we don't have and what is missing. It's a pattern where we underestimate our lives by consistently comparing them to highly curated feeds, for example, social media. It all comes down to comparison. 200 years ago, we were not comparing ourselves to influencers on social media. We were not comparing ourselves to so many different people online every day. If you're using ChatGPT and Google to figure out how to survive your ADHD, that's a sign you need real support. ADHD Journey is the online course and community I created for people who are smart, capable, but exhausted. It's less than a cup of coffee a week, and it can give you amazing techniques that you can also use with your kids. Use the code ADHDVIP at the checkout for 50% off your first month. I can't wait to see you on the other side. There's different types of comparison. There is something called upward social comparison, and this is where you compare yourself to people who you think are better than you or in a better situation. And this is one of the reasons that we feel life dysmorphia, because we are constantly comparing ourselves to idealized people, influencers. And when you are consistently comparing yourself to people who you perceive as richer, skinnier, smarter, better, you start to see yourself as abnormal. And I've spoken about this in the terms of body image online with a term called visual adaptation. And basically, it means that visually you start to adapt to what you see online so that what you actually are becomes distorted, and you start to see your body as abnormal. And when you constantly see people who are skinnier, taller, you start to actually see yourself as worse than you are, and you actually see yourself as an outlier. So the reason we feel this dissatisfaction with our life, or this distorted perception of our life, is because we're constantly comparing our lives to people who we perceive as better. This can affect your self-esteem, this can affect your well-being, and lead you just to not see the good things in life. If you're always looking for what's missing, you're never going to appreciate the small things. And when I watched this lady's TikTok video last night, she said the way you get this back is you start to see the small things. You start to appreciate the small things. So when I woke up this morning, I'm living in my I didn't even want to say I'm living in my dream apartment, because I'm like, oh, it's not the dream because I don't have an ocean view. But my dream was to live where I'm living. I wanted to live in this specific building for 2 years, and I manifested it. And now that I'm in here, I'm like, I want a beach view. I want to be on a higher floor. And that just goes to show that once you get the thing, you want that next thing. You want that next level. And this is called hedonic adaptation, which I'll cover shortly. So this morning when I woke up, I looked out the window and I said to my partner, look at the view. How beautiful is this view that we have from our apartment? I never, ever, ever, I do a little bit, but not as much as I should, appreciate the view. No, I've been fixated on it's not an ocean view. It's not an open balcony. That's all I've been focusing on. But today I actually said, oh my gosh, you can see mountains from where we live. You can see a beautiful skyline. You can see the buildings. And I said, look how beautiful this view is. And he was like, yeah, it is. And that made me feel really appreciative and thankful. And I'm going to go into how you can actually start to not heal from this, but start to minimize the impact on your life by choosing to notice what's good. But it takes work. Let me go back to hedonic adaptation. So the word hedonic, all it means is related to pleasure or happiness. So think hedonic happiness. I always think of Sonic the Hedgehog. I don't know why. Hedonic means related to pleasure and happiness. Hedonic adaptation means we adapt to pleasure or happiness, right? So for example, I'll be happy when I get that promotion. You get that promotion, you're like, yay, and then you adapt to it. And that becomes your new baseline. So then the next baseline. And the same is with everything. It's with your weight, it's with your finances. You once had a dream to be where you are now, for many people financially, right? I wish I could have this job. I would love to work in this industry. I would love to have a full-time gig. And now that you have it, you don't notice that anymore. You've adapted. So the hedonic treadmill, also known as hedonic adaptation, it's like a treadmill. You're on this treadmill, and every time you experience something positive, you quickly adapt. A new job, a new home, a new follower account. I remember wishing and hoping I would hit 10,000 followers on Instagram. Like, oh my God, when I hit 10,000, like that'll be it. That'll be the saving grace. Oh my gosh, I can do this. I can do that. I can go live, whatever. And then I thought, no. Do you know what? 30,000. Like that's it. All I want is 30,000. Once I've hit 30,000, I've made it in life. And I would look at people with 30,000 followers and put them on this pedestal and think, oh my gosh, they are God. They're amazing. And I know this sounds really sad, but this is what I used to think. And when I'd speak to them, I think, oh my God, they're not even grateful. They don't even realize how lucky they are to have 30,000 followers. And now that I'm 30, I'm like, you know what? I'm good. If my follower count never grew, like, okay, whatever. I think I'm on 35. No way. No, I think I'm on 32.2 at the moment. But now I'm like, okay, 50 or even 70. That would be the new thing. It keeps going. And that's why it's called a treadmill, because it keeps going. You're round and round the hamster wheel. Yesterday's win becomes today's baseline. Don't forget that. The hedonic adaptation prevention model explains why gains fade and how to slow the fade. So how do we slow being on this treadmill of happiness and resetting? We stop and we start to appreciate the little things. And my dad is such a beautiful example of this. I'll give you an example because I feel like I have hedonic adaptation to eating out. I have eaten such incredible food and I've eaten at really nice places, like maybe not as nice as other people, but for me. And now my standard of food is so incredibly high that it takes me a lot to be happy. So for example, we went to this local place in Bali and it was so beautiful. The people were amazing. And my dad was so happy. It was literally like a $5 papaya salad. It was actually a really good papaya salad, but my dad was so happy because I love this place. It's so nice. It's incredible. I love the local food. He's happy to just go get a bintang and eat something simple. Whereas me and my sisters, we really wanted to take my parents out and celebrate. And we took them to really nice, expensive restaurants, which they loved and appreciated. But my dad was like, I could tell deep down, he's like, I want the $12 pad thai noodles. So when we're there, he's like, this is amazing. Like, this is really authentic. And he would tell the chefs and he would be like, this is such authentic, amazing. And he's so happy with the small things in life. Even if I show my dad a small feature on his iPhone, he'll be like, wow, Steph, that's incredible. But I'll be like, the internet is so slow. Do you know what I mean? I am an example of this, and I'm sure we all are. So I'm making a conscious effort this October to step off this hedonic treadmill, to replace my life dysmorphia with life appreciation. I didn't come up with a matching word then. Start to notice the view. Oh my gosh, look at this view. Start to appreciate that taste of coffee in the morning. Yum, this coffee is amazing. How wonderful. And life is so good when you appreciate little things. Some people call it romanticizing their life. Now, let me go into, so we know what life dysmorphia is, and it is the distorted appraisal of your life, your success, your happiness, your relationships. You fixate on what's missing than what is going well. And it's not your fault. Your brain is programmed to survive. It's programmed to look out for threat, but social media makes this even worse. Now, why does this happen? Social comparison and the hedonic treadmill. We're very quick to adapt to positive, pleasurable things in our life. That baseline continually gets moved. And remember, focus equals feeling. If you're focusing, I don't have a partner, I don't have a partner, I don't have a partner, you're going to feel bad when you focus on what's missing. Whereas when you focus on the view, you focus on the coffee, you focus on what's good, you're going to feel good. But here's the thing. It takes effort to do this. It takes no effort to be negative. Trust me, I can be a negative Nancy, and I've been there before. I can be super critical of life and food and restaurants and everything, but it doesn't make me happy. It's not also about being positive all the time, like, oh my God, everything's amazing. It's about noticing what's real and noticing what's there and calling it out rather than drinking a coffee and being like, yay, coffee, be like, yum, that tasted really good. So, what are some of the signs that you might be experiencing this? You feel disappointed with your life. You constantly compare yourself to other people. You're constantly focusing on what's not going well in your life. You feel your life is inferior and it's not as good as other people. Now, of course, if this is affecting your day-to-day life, if it's affecting you engaging in things you want to do, you're not even trying because you don't see a point, speak to a professional. But here are some tips on how you can beat life dysmorphia. So step 1 is awareness precedes change. If this is you, notice how it's showing up. So I've noticed I've got this around, around life. I've got this around food as well. My standards are incredibly high. And look, there's nothing wrong with having high standards. People might be thinking, yeah, but my life isn't what I want it to be. I do want to be more financially free. I do want to improve my health and wellness. That's fine. And it's okay to have goals, but it's unhelpful for you to live in this dysphoric state. It's unhelpful for you to compare yourself because that's not going to put you in a state of moving towards your goals. Of course, we all have financial goals, but it doesn't help me to be like, oh my God, why is she achieving that? And why can't I achieve that? What am I doing to achieve that? Right? And where was I a year ago, 6 months ago? Right now, I'm living the dream life of my 15-year-old self. I remember I was like, I want to work remotely. I want to work from home. I want an online business. I want to not work for anyone. I'm literally living my dream life. And you have to stop and ground yourself and bring yourself back. Stop searching for this happy day. People think I'm just going to wake up one day and it's all going to be good. I'm going to be happy, but it's not true. So step 1 is start to notice when this dysmorphia for your life comes up and call it out. If you're complaining about something, what's good? In every complaint, I want you to find something what's good. And if you're super negative, you can just balance this out. Be like, do you know what? Whilst I'm not in my ideal apartment, what I really love about this apartment is XYZ. You know what? While I think the food at this restaurant wasn't the best, I actually really enjoyed that papaya salad. That one's for me. So start to notice it and start to just inject some positive. If you're always focused on what you're not doing, you're not going to do it because you're going to feel crap. So say, do you know what? Yeah, maybe I didn't go for that 5K walk, but I got outside today and I saw the sun and the sun was beautiful. Appreciate little things in your life. Start to notice the view. Notice today my partner said something so sweet and I made a big song and dance about it. I said, what were 3 things you missed about me when you're away? And he said, your company, hugs and kisses. And I said, that was so beautiful. And I went on and on and on and on about it. Number 2 is redirect or change the focus. Similar to number 1. Instead of focusing on what you don't have, what do you have? Yes, maybe you don't have all these savings in the bank, but were you able to book a holiday this year? Were you able to invest in something you wanted to invest in? What are you proud of? What did you do well today? Now, this is a game changer. This is actually an exercise I get people to do. And at the end of the day, you say, what am I proud of? What am I grateful for? I do this every single night with my partner. Sometimes he's like, just let me go to bed. I go, no, answer the question. Every day, what am I proud of? What am I grateful for? And number 3 is become curious instead of critical. The next time you notice yourself engaging in this life comparison, this life dysmorphia, say, what's this about? Instead of saying, I don't have that, my life sucks. Be curious and ask yourself questions about it. And the 4th and final thing to help you is help others. Connection equals satisfaction. When you step outside of yourself and you actually help other people or encourage other people, you really start to feel good about yourself. So start to think, how can I create impact? How can I help others? You're probably already doing it in your work, but you're not giving yourself enough credit. If you relate to this episode, please let me know. Leave a rating and a review, or tag me or screenshot this on Instagram. I appreciate you being here today. And remember, appreciate the little things in life. Did you know by taking 2 seconds to leave a rating or a review, you help me get the podcast out to more listeners just like you who could really benefit from the information? I appreciate all your support and thank you for tuning in.